So recently, Screen Rant put out not one but two articles talking about a potential Rescue Rangers sequel in the near future by the same people behind this film. Now they did, basically they did, and I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say here, I do apologize. They did have a snippet in the second article where they talked to, I think, what was his name, Andy Schaefer, the guy that directed this one, if you will, the first Rescue Ranger movie. And he said he would love to, do another movie, but he would also love to explore more in depth the Chip and Dale universe. Now, when I hear him say that, when I hear him say he would like to look more in depth into the Chip and Dale universe, I don't know if he's saying, he wants to continue more exploration into this metaverse of Rescue Rangers that we have in the first movie, or if he wants to actually do what fans were hoping was going to be done, and that's to explore the Chip and Dale universe of the series itself. In other words, the Prime universe. I'm not really sure. But I can say this, that if he decides that the sequel is going to stay in the metaverse, as people call it, of Rescue Rangers, then I think the best solution to do, in my opinion, is to follow up on the ending of the film. You basically showed that the Rangers are back together, so why not follow up on that by having the Rescue Rangers become an actual mystery-solving, crime-fighting team that was originally, I should say, just a mystery-solving, crime-fighting team, for a television show. Now they're the real deal. Now they're an actual team solving real crimes, real mysteries, not just in Los Angeles, but all over the world. I think honestly, if he was to do something like that, follow up on the ending of the first film, I believe that would be, acceptable by a lot of folks, because even though you'd still be in this metaverse where you would have not just different Disney IPs, but potentially other studio IPs making appearances, cameos, whatever, I think fans would be more accepting of it because of the fact that, you're actually doing Rescue Rangers now, and you're giving the explanation as to why they are now a legit crime-fighting, mystery-solving team that is based on what they portrayed in a show. So, I think if he does that, fans would be more accepting of, that movie, of that story, than they are of the first one. Because there's always that old saying of, the sequel is always better than the first. Which is pretty much true. Some would say, nothing can compare to the first one, and that's true too. But when it comes to the case of, let's say, Rescue Rangers, and the setting that it's placed in with this film and the potential second film, I could see people saying that the sequel was better than the original. And like I said, there are cases of that. There is no doubt. I mean, let's take a look at the Christopher Nolan. Let's take a look at the Christopher Nolan trio of Batman films, okay? Batman Begins was good. Let's not deny that. Batman Begins was good. But when The Dark Knight came out, people praised The Dark Knight as being superior to the first one. They praised it as being superior to the first one with its storytelling, its acting, the whole shebang. It was a 10 out of 10 in their opinion, which is why it got a Best Picture nomination, I think, and even a Best Supporting Actor nomination for the late Heath Ledger. So that's one of those rare cases where the sequel outdid better in box office and fan reception and critical reception than the first. And that could potentially be the case with a second Rescue Rangers movie if they want to keep it in this universe, but follow up on the fact that, at the end of the first film, going into the second, the Rescue Rangers are now an actual team that are solving actual crimes and mysteries, just like they did in the show, but now they're doing it for real. I think that would be more accepted by fans, even those that weren't fond of this film, than, the first one. I think they would be more accepting, more, I think they would get more critical praise and everything. And you would have a lot more to build on within the film. Like, you're going to build upon the Rangers, maybe even though it could be in continuity a year after they reunited or something. You could have them still working on trying to reestablish the chemistry they once had. You could do that. You could actually go in that direction, which I think would be honestly really cool, in my opinion. I think it would be honestly really cool. But again, that's just one possible direction he could go in when referencing wanting to dig deeper into the Rescue Ranger universe, or Chip and Dale universe, as he put it. Because the other option he could go with, and I think it would be a more favorable option in the eyes of a lot of fans, is to do the second movie, a follow-up film, but keep it within the universe of the show. In other words, keep it in what people call the prime universe of Rescue Rangers, that being the world and continuity of the actual show. And I will say this, that if option B is the direction he would go in, or the sequel, the follow-up film would go in, it wouldn't be the first time. Because one of the prime examples from my own personal experience of this happening is Power Rangers back in the 90s. We got the mighty. You see, in 1995. Let me try to find my words here, because I'm doing this unscripted, which is my forte, and I do apologize to anybody that don't like that. But anyway, in 1995, Power Rangers had the theatrical movie. Now, even though it seemed to be connected, loosely in continuity to the original series, but given a bigger budget and everything, at the end of the day, when you go back and you watch the series on television, and you see the same story being told similarly that you just saw on the big screen, of them getting the ninja powers and all that, that's when it dawns on you that this is two different versions of the same story. Which also dawns on you, even though you may have not thought about it back then, that the Power Rangers you saw there on the big screen takes place in an alternate reality that's very similar to a T almost to the exact tipping point, if you will, of the prime continuity, the prime reality, the prime verse that you know of, thanks to, of course, the Super Sentai series from Japan. So, yeah, when you went and saw the movie on the big screen, and you saw the story being told there of how they got the ninja powers, and then you saw the same story being told similarly in the series, and you had two different characters, I should say, giving them the powers, again, that's when it dawns on you that what you saw was a more Americanized version, North Americanized version, I should say, of the Power Rangers, Western culture version of the Power Rangers, than what you were seeing later on television with the same story being told. That's what I was trying to say. So there was a bit of confusion, but again, it slowly dawns on you that what you saw on the big screen potentially was another universe, another reality and everything, very similar to a T almost to the prime one. However, a couple of years later, when they released Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, on the big screen, that is when fans, were not, really confused at all. And why that movie got some praise, maybe a bit more praise than the first one, even though it wasn't as successful. The reason, though, it got a little bit more praise from the critics, even though the critics may have not been fond of it, is because it stayed within the lore and the continuity of the original series. Thus, when you went and watched the original series when you got back home, it wasn't retelling or telling you a different version of how they got their turbo powers, just like with the first one, giving you two different versions of how they got the ninja powers. No, instead, what you saw in the movie was continued on in the series, what you saw in the movie was continued on in the series. So there was no mass confusion in continuity. Like, wait a minute, I just saw the story being told on the big screen and now it's being told again, and yet the person giving them the ninja powers here on the show is a robot like Ninja, that's different from that female Dulcea character, shape-shifting character. It's like, what's going on? What's going on here? So to me, the reason Turbo got, like I said, a little bit more critical praise is because it didn't confuse folks that may have been kids or folks that may have been fans of the show, because the story that you saw on the big screen stayed in continuity with what you were seeing on the show, from going from the Zeo powers to the Turbo powers, if you catch my drift. And when I look at Rescue Rangers, and the possible sequel, follow-up film, being in a similar category to where the director could be like, okay, I want to do this follow-up, but I want to explore the, in-show universe, the in-show verse of the series. In other words, he wants to now do a movie based in the universe of the series. Instead of, keeping it meta, he's now going to want to go in a different direction and say, okay, now we're going to do the series, as a movie, the actual series that people grew up on, the actual series that people wanted a movie on. Well, now I'm going to explore that and see what we could do with it. And that potentially could happen. That could potentially be the direction for the Rescue Rangers sequel. That instead of being in the metaverse still, like, the first film is, it could be based in the prime universe of the series and go from there. And there's a lot of different options they could come up with. They can come up with all the villains that the Rangers faced off against and defeated, and have them conspire against the Rangers to, finally take them out. You could create a new threat, all that. Maybe even the new threat brings all these villains together to go against the Rangers. Who knows? The point is, there's a lot of options they could explore by going in that direction. And by going in that direction, so to speak, it allows them basically, to finally not only give the fans a Rescue Ranger film like they did with the first one, but also give them a Rescue Ranger film the way fans were hoping it would be. And a lot of other things could be explored. Like, you could explore, like, okay, does Gadget in the show universe, in the prime verse of the show, is she going to finally choose Chip or Dale? Which, again, I think if something like this happens, she'll be leaning more towards Dale because of all the obvious hints and Easter eggs thrown throughout the show. So I could see that. I could see that being a potential direction they go with. With her choosing. Will they bring back fan favorites like, Foxglove and Tammy, like they did in the Boom Studios 8-issue revival? A lot of things can be done. And I would be all for it. I know a lot of people would be all for it, to be honest with you. But that's totally up to, basically, ladies and gentlemen, that's totally up to Andy Schaefer and his crew, whether he's going to work with the same crew as in the first film or he's going to get a different crew. That's up to the direction they want to go. Again, I don't have a problem either way they go. I think the only way that the sequel, if it stays in the metaverse of the real world, if you will, like the first film is, the only way I think that works is if you make the Rescue Rangers become an actual real-life crime-fighting, mystery-solving team based on the team that you portrayed on television. But this time, everything they're trying to solve, the crimes, the mysteries, they're real. And you could even bring Ellie back if you want to and make her like the human member of the team that, is working with the police and has her own agency, if you will, but is working with the police. He's to try to solve these mysteries, and the parts of the mysteries or crimes they can't solve, she hands over to the Rangers. To me, like I said, that would be more accepting, by a lot of fans, even those that didn't like the film, than, the first one was, in my opinion. So, So to me, that's one way they could do a sequel set in the Metaverse that we got in the first film. But then again, like I said, they could go the route that another Ranger film went that I mentioned did back in the 90s. And that is, okay, the first one was set in the Metaverse. We're going to now take the second one, place it in the universe of the show, and see what happens. But again, it's up to them what they do. But me personally, I personally, if I was to choose between a preference between the possibilities of what a sequel could be like, I would have to lean more towards keeping or having the sequel, the follow-up film. If I was to have a preference, I would say have the follow-up film take place in the Primeverse. That way, you're giving the fans, what they want. Finally, what I'm trying to say is, by doing so, you'd be giving the fans what they want. You'd be finally giving the fans what they want with the second film, after kind of giving them a taste of what a Ranger film would be if done in a different scenario. Basically in the style of meta-ness and all that. But again, like I said, we'll just have to see what they decide to do. But if I had a personal preference, I would go more with, leaning towards the Primeverse as getting a film instead of the Metaverse again. Because, like I said, by doing so, you're giving the fans kind of the best of two worlds. The first one, you're kind of giving them like a behind-the-scenes meta-commentary on things in Hollywood and animation and all that, and doing something with the Rangers nobody would expect. But then with the second film, hey, you're actually giving them what they've been clamoring for a long time, a movie based in said universe. But again, it's up to them. We'll see what they decide to do. But what are your thoughts? Where do you think a sequel should take place for Rescue Rangers should it happen? Do you think they should set it? Okay, let me rewind. Okay. What I'm trying to say is, what are your thoughts on the potential sequel? Do you think they should keep it set in the Metaverse or the real world, but this time it's established that the Rangers have become an actual team identical to what they portrayed on television, solving real crimes and real mysteries in the real world, with Ellie maybe helping them out with giving them clues as to, certain things about the cases of mysteries the police, can't solve, so she's handing it off to them? What are your thoughts? Do you think it should go in that direction? Or do you think maybe they should take a page out of movies like, Power Rangers, if you will, and basically, set the series, or set the sequel, I should say, not the series, but set the sequel or the follow-up film in the Prime universe, and, for the second film, finally give the fans what they've been wanting? Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment if you like, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Super chats and super stickers will be available during the premiere of this video, and the super thanks button will be enabled afterwards if you want to help donate there. You can check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2 to help support me there, and at Cash App at BWRoses98. You can also check me out at my Patreon.com/BWRoses for content you can't get anywhere else. Until later on, with the $3 tier and a $1 tier gets you a shout out. Also check me out at VENMO at you can check me out at VENMO at BWRoses98 for content you can't get here on YouTube due to copyright. Also, you can check me out at deviantart.com/BVW1979. Also at fanfiction.net/Brian.Walmer.1. That's numeral 1. And at BW Roses Discussions, all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. And check out the Teespring store as well. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Overall, which direction do you prefer more for the sequel? Let me know in the comments and in the live chat. And until next time, guys,